It's a great pleasure for me to stand before you to introduce and to honor my friend and a person I've had the good fortune of working with closely over the past 15 years, Rabbi Rachel Cowan. And it's a special honor for me to have this opportunity at a dinner being sponsored by the Garrison Institute, an institute which I very much admire, and I've had the good fortune in the past year of actually leading a retreat there for judges and lawyers. And we're doing another one next May. And the opportunity to be in that beautiful place with its noble objectives has been wonderful for me. Rabbi Cowan and I, Rachel, I'll call her, worked together for a decade at the Nathan Cummings Foundation. When we began there, it was a new foundation with substantial assets. We had the opportunity to work with the Cummings family to really shape a program that would make a difference in the world. And I was the first to be hired, and I had the opportunity to put together a staff, and Rachel agreed to head our Jewish Life program. And we didn't have much more than those two words, Jewish Life, to guide our choices and our grant making. And together, we put together a program that was quite unique in many respects. But the one I want to focus on tonight is the part that relates to contemplative practices such as meditation and mindfulness. Because Rachel and I worked to bring into the Jewish religion to a renewed attention to the traditions of contemplative practice which had existed in the ancient religion, but which had disappeared for the last few hundred years. And we knew there were people who wanted to bring it back, and Rachel was the person to do it. She has a rare combination among powerful spiritual teachers, and that is a very strong practical side. So she's got this deep spirituality and also a grounded entrepreneurial capacity to manage a program and to energize other people to take on new projects. Because the Nathan Cummings Foundation wasn't interested only in funding existing programs. We wanted to create new things. So when I look over just a handful of the programs that Rachel invented and managed, first was the area of Jewish healing. The idea that in addition to medical care, people with serious illnesses need some kind of training in resilience, in self-compassion, in the capacity to manage difficult situations and recognize, as Sharon just said so eloquently, that very bad things and very good things can coexist and actually support each other. And the idea of that kind of Jewish healing had not really been an integral part of Jewish thought. And through Rachel's entrepreneurial efforts and her leadership within a young generation of rabbis, many of whom were women, which is a new phenomenon in the Jewish world. To have a substantial number, to have any Jewish rabbis is relatively new, but to have a substantial number to work with is quite unprecedented. And today there are Jewish healing centers all over America that are really for terribly sick people and for people who are approaching death. They have resources coming through religious sources that hadn't existed before. And it's Rachel's entrepreneurial work and her spiritual depth that made this possible. Another area where her innovation has been extremely important is with Jewish meditation itself. Health programs, Jewish meditation programs, each took her entrepreneurial skill. Again, the practicality and the spiritual depth. Now, it was a new foundation. We were extremely busy, so we ended up having to do much of our most creative work while we walked to work together We both live on Riverside Drive. We would walk across Central Park to our office on 3rd Avenue. And during the course of our walks across Central Park, we did some of our best work. Our conversations were interrupted as we walked over the early morning hours because Rachel is such a devoted bird watcher that if some interesting bird flew up or we heard a bird song, she'd want to pause, the conversation would stop, we'd have a mindful moment of silence while she identified what the bird song was. And through her, I learned a great deal about the world of birds, about which I knew nothing. But I bring this up because it shows how grounded she would be in the natural world and how appreciative she was. When we were walking through the park in this beautiful setting, perhaps in the springtime, walking through the cherry blossoms around the reservoir, Rachel would always be fully present with that scene, taking it in and letting the beauty of our surroundings infuse our conversation. A very beautiful experience. Coming home was a different matter. Usually we were tired, we wouldn't walk across the park. We'd walk over to the Broadway Local, get on the Broadway Local, which was another kind of, where we were subject to another kind of interruption in our conversations that tells another side of Rachel that I greatly value. That is the fact that when you got on a crowded car going north at 5:30 or 6:30 on the number 1 train, there was at least a 50-50 chance that 2 or 3 people on that car would be friends of Rachel and would want to talk to her. She had for decades before this foundation existed been a core person in the revival of communities on the Upper West Side, both Jewish and otherwise. And people would come up to her with their problems and the things, that if they had a child who was having a difficult divorce, they'd have a little consult with her while we're going uptown on the subway. And it showed me just how she carried into every aspect of her life the deep spirituality that was going into our design of a unique grant-making program, one that has had a lasting impact in the Jewish world and outside the Jewish world as well. But in addition to that, she was also engaged in this very textured way dealing with micro-relationships and people who understood what her wisdom meant to them and could mean to them, who wanted to tap into that wisdom. As a trustee of the Garrison Institute, she brought all of the different ways she could engage the natural world, the Jewish world, the communities of the Upper West Side. She brought all of that to Garrison. And I think her contribution there has made Garrison the unique and significant institution that it is. I want to mention one last contribution she's made, and that most recently is her book on wise aging. I will say that aging wisely is a big issue for me right now. And perhaps there are some other people in the room who are also aging and are conscious of it. And this is a book which I can recommend as an extraordinary embodiment of her life experience, of her accumulated wisdom, and her basic kindness and love. So think about that book when you're thinking about a gift for yourself or a loved one who is thinking about wise aging. So without more, I would like to invite Rachel up. And it's my great pleasure to give her Garrison Institute's Insight and Impact Award. Should I put this down somewhere? I'll put it here.
So just to tell you how far I've come, I want to tell you a really probably this is the most embarrassing place to tell this embarrassing story, which is when I first started to work at the Nathan Cummings Foundation. I was fresh out of rabbinical school, and somebody sent me a proposal that it would be great for a group of rabbis to go meet with the Dalai Lama. So I looked at it and I said, huh? Why would this matter? And I took it to Charlie, and he said, "Are you kidding? Fabulous, grant made." And I didn't even go on the trip, but my friend Rabbi Joy Levitt, who's here, did go on that trip. And the book that came out of that, The Jew and the Lotus, had a huge impact in the Jewish world. So I thank you, Jonathan, Deanna, for choosing to honor me. I really feel honored, as it was an honor and privilege to serve on your board. And I also really am hugely honored to be here with Sharon Salzberg, who was my first teacher of mindfulness. I remember doing a week-long metta retreat with her, and I never imagined that the phrases one says in a metta retreat, I could say them to myself. I could merit those wishes. So I spent the whole week under Sharon's guidance just practicing, say it to myself, so I could actually believe maybe it was true. And so I guess gradually over time I have come to believe I do deserve that. So I'm just really happy to be here. And I just wanted to share a couple of things that I appreciate about the Garrison Institute so much. And just to add to what Sharon said, every time you're on a retreat there, it's within this context of understanding that our own suffering exists in the context of enormous suffering, and our love exists in the context of enormous love, and that our real goal, our aspiration, is to strengthen that love. So as I said in the Shabbat candles, it can come into us and then go out through us into the world. So I don't know how many of you have had the privilege of sitting on retreat at the Garrison Institute, but I am one of thousands who have had that privilege and whose lives have been changed by it. And to sit in that enormous meditation hall with this giant, golden, incredible Buddha there, and to feel the vibrations of all of those prayers, all those words, all those intentions that have been said, chanted, held in silence, is to feel alive with vibration, to walk down to the river in the early morning, silent, deer, foxes, and one incredible morning, a bald eagle diving into the water, grabbing a big fish that was shining gold in the sunrise. These are the kind of spiritual experience you have where you realize each one of us, all we are is a tiny, tiny speck in this huge, awesome world of creation, this mystery. And from that place, we understand our responsibility to care for this incredibly precious planet. And we stand always at this Hudson facing West Point over there across the river. So you think, okay, I'm a voice for peace, hello over there. And you hope to get strengthened in that resolve for peace. And then I just want to appreciate another aspect of the work of Garrison, which has to do with, in amongst all the arenas into which the Institute is bringing mindfulness practice, one is the arena of organized religion. I first met Jonathan when he came for a grant at the Nathan Cummings Foundation for college chaplains to learn mindfulness. And thanks to the Jewish Community Center of the West Side, which is a partner with Garrison in the city, and thanks to the Institute for Jewish Spirituality, we really have been able to do that work. And when you bring mindfulness into the core of a religion, a mainstream Catholicism, Protestantism, Judaism, whatever, you call that religion back to its core mission, that mission of compassion, of care, of being able to pray with silence, with words, with intention. And so being able to do that work through the Garrison Institute, through the other organizations I've been part of, has made a huge difference. I can measure it in the Jewish world. And also religions are a tremendous way of diffusing mindfulness out into the culture, which is another thing that we have cared about at the Garrison Institute. So I just want to say it has been an honor to be honored by you. It's been an honor to be able to do the work that I do, an honor to share this space with my beloved teacher, Sharon. And I wish you all just tremendous joy, strength, courage, and I really love Sharon's book on faith, the faith that comes from knowing that the practice really helps, the faith that comes from your experience of seeing what has worked, to know you have that capacity. And this is a time when we need faith in ourselves, in our tradition, in our practice, and in our love. So thank you very much.